1 c4, e6, 2 knight to c3, d5, 3 d4, bishop to e7, 4 knight to f3, knight to f6, 5 bishop to g5, h6, 6 bishop to h4, castle, 7 rook to c1, d takes c4, 8 e3, c5, 9 bishop takes c4, c takes d4, 10 e takes d4, and the isolated queen's pawn arises. Knight to c6, 11 castle, knight to h5. Black's goal is simplification, to draw the sting out of white's attacking chances. The knight went to h5 so that the bishop couldn't escape capture by going to g3. It also looks at f4. 12, bishop takes e7, knight takes e7. The knight covers the key square at d5. 13, bishop to b3. 13, rook to e1 would be the usual idea. Get all the pieces out. On the other hand, with a pair of pieces off and more to come, the customary d5 advance will only lead to liquidation, and probably not one that white would be happy with. For instance, 13, d5. E takes d5. 14, knight takes d5. Knight takes d5. 15, bishop takes d5. An alternative line, 15, queen takes d5, queen takes d5, 16, bishop takes d5, knight to f4, 17, bishop to c4, bishop to e6, runs into the same kind of problems as 15, bishop takes d5. If at move 15 the bishop takes d5, black responds with knight to f4. 16, bishop to c4, queen takes d1, 17, the rook on f takes at d1, bishop to g4, and black already stands slightly better. This is based more on the specifics of this position than a statement about the move d5, however. The h5 knight happens to serve a powerful function due to the possibility of knight to f4. Usually a move like 13 d5 would lead to equality, which is still a success for black in opening play. Returning to move 13 of the original game, bishop to b3, black responds with knight to f6. Again, protecting the crucial d5 square. 14, knight to e5. White does the right thing by occupying the support point. Bishop to d7. The normal continuation, 14, b6 followed by bishop to b7, would only be tempting sacrificial ideas on f7 as described above. 15, queen to e2, rook to c8. 16, knight to e4. More simplification, but bishop to c6 was coming anyway. Black continues with knight takes e4, 17. Queen takes e4. Bishop to c6. 18. Knight takes c6. Rook takes c6. 19. Rook to c3. Take a look at 19. Rook takes c6. B takes c6. This is our first example of what is a recurring type of position in the openings world. Black takes on an isolated c-pawn at the same time as white has an isolated d-pawn. In the general case, the obvious difference between the d-pawn and c-pawn is that white has more space. Not so obvious is that a third-rank pawn is easier to defend than a fourth-rank pawn. In this instance, the pawn on c6 prevents white's isolated pawn from advancing while maintaining an outpost on d5, and the options of queen to d6, rook to d8, and knight to f5. Black also has a useful b file that is typical of this structure. A lot comes down to activity here. For instance, will a white rook on the outpost c5, with the possible help of a bishop on a4, make up for black's pressure on the d-pawn? Probably not. But those are the kinds of competing factors that arise. More on the isolated c-pawn will follow in the examples below. Incidentally, after 19, rook takes c6, knight takes c6, 20, d5, e takes d5, 21, bishop takes d5, is at best equal for black, because bishop versus knight with pawns on both sides of the board is usually difficult for the side with the knight. But white's choice here at 19 was rook to c3. Black follows with queen to d6, 20, g3, rook to d8, 21, rook to d1, rook to b6. The opening is over, and black has restrained the pawn, while white has no outposts or attack. Thus black has the advantage. From this point, Karpov plays one of the best technical games in World Championship history. 22, queen to e1, queen to d7, 23, rook on c to d3, rook to d6, 24, queen to e4, queen to c6, 25, queen to f4, knight to d5, 26, queen to d2, queen to b6, 27, bishop takes d5, rook takes d5, 28, rook to b3, queen to c6, 29, queen to c3, queen to d7, 30, f4, b6, 31, rook to b4, b5, 32, a4, b takes a4, 33, queen to a3, a5, 34, rook takes a4, queen to b5, 35, rook to d2, e5, 36, f takes e5, rook takes e5, 37, queen, a1, queen to e8, 38. D takes e5. Rook takes d2. 39. Rook takes a5. Queen to c6. 40. Rook to a8. Check. King to h7. 41. Queen to b1. Check. g6. 42. Queen to f1. Queen to c5. Check. 43. King to h1. Queen to d5. Check. And white resigns.